There was screaming coming from your house. The neighbor said, my heart dropped. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I never thought one night could change everything. My name is Alec Rose. I lived in a quiet neighborhood. Everything felt safe. I had a small apartment, a few friends, and a normal life. I worked during the day and came home to rest. My life was simple, predictable. I liked it that way. But that night, things felt strange. The air was heavy. I couldn't explain it. The street was quieter than usual. No kids laughing, no dogs barking, just silence. I told myself it was nothing, just one of those nights. I was cooking dinner when the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I hesitated but answered. A shaky voice said, "There's screaming coming from your house." My heart stopped. Screaming from my house. I froze. I laughed nervously. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone called the wrong number. I tried to calm myself, telling myself everything was fine. Then I heard it. Sirens, lights flashing outside, red and blue spinning across my walls. My stomach dropped. I ran to the window. Neighbors were outside, whispering. Some were pointing. Their faces were tense, scared, accusing. I didn't understand. I grabbed my phone to call the police, but they were already at my door. 2 officers, serious, combat their eyes said suspicion. "Stay here," one said. My voice shook. "What's happening?" I asked. He didn't answer. Not yet. I tried to call my roommate upstairs. No answer. My hands were trembling. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I was frozen. Minutes passed like hours. The officer finally spoke. "We got a report of screaming. We need to check inside." I nodded, afraid. My mind raced. Who called them? Why would anyone say I was screaming? Nothing had happened. Nothing. Then I saw the broken picture frame in my living room. The officer held it like evidence. My eyes widened. That frame had fallen weeks ago. No one was hurt. Nothing had happened. But suddenly, I felt guilty. Even though I was innocent, everyone was looking at me like I wasn't. My home felt like a crime scene. My life, suddenly, didn't belong to me. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Sometimes, fear and assumptions can ruin everything. Sometimes, people see danger where there is none. I didn't know it then. But this night was only the beginning. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. A car door closing, a dog barking, even my own heartbeat. I kept thinking about that neighbor's call. Who did it? Why? How could one phone call change everything? The next morning, I went outside. The street looked the same, quiet, normal, but it wasn't the same for me. People looked at me differently. Whispers followed me as I walked to the store. Some neighbors avoided my eyes. I felt small, invisible, and angry. I tried to call the police to explain again. They listened politely but didn't seem to care. "No evidence," one said. "We'll close the case." I wanted to scream. They didn't understand. They didn't see what I felt. Then came the texts from unknown numbers. "We saw what happened. Be careful. You shouldn't be out alone." Fear was everywhere, not just in my home, but in my mind. Every time I stepped outside, I felt watched, judged, threatened. One evening, I went to the park to clear my head. I thought fresh air would help. It didn't. People stared at me. Some whispered. A man crossed the street when I walked near. My heart raced. My hands shook. I realized the world had already decided who I was before even knowing me. At home, I tried to tell my friends. They said, "It's probably nothing. Don't worry." But it was everything. I couldn't stop thinking about that night, about the flashing lights, the neighbors, the officers, about how fast life could feel unsafe in a place you called home. I started keeping a journal. Every thought, every sound, every strange look. I needed to remember. I needed to understand. And slowly, a pattern appeared. It wasn't just the neighbor's call. It was fear. Fear that turned into assumptions. Fear that made strangers see danger where there was none. One night, weeks later, I finally got a clue. I saw the neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, talking to someone outside. He looked nervous. His hands shook. He avoided me when I came out. My stomach twisted. I realized something. He had lied. That call wasn't about me being loud. It was about what he assumed I was. The anger hit me first. Then the fear. then a heavy sadness. I wanted to confront him, but I was scared. What would he say? Would he admit it? Would he blame me for being afraid? And at that moment, I understood. My life would never feel the same, because sometimes, the people who are supposed to be your neighbors are the ones who change everything with one call, one assumption, one choice. Weeks passed, and the fear never left me. Every time I opened the door, I felt eyes on me. Every knock made my heart race. The world had changed. Or maybe I had. Then it got worse. One morning, I came home from work to find police cars parked outside my building again. My hands trembled as I walked toward the entrance. I didn't know what to expect. Was someone hurt? Had something happened while I was gone? I felt trapped in my own home. An officer stepped forward, his face serious. "We received another complaint about screaming from this address," he said. My throat went dry. My mind raced. "Screaming," I whispered. Again, I tried to explain, but he didn't seem to hear. His eyes looked at me differently now. Not just suspicion, distrust. Like he had already decided the story before hearing me. Inside, neighbors stared from their windows. Whispers followed me up the stairs. My apartment felt smaller, safer nowhere. Then came the calls. Anonymous messages on my phone. "We know what you're hiding. Better watch yourself." My hands shook every time the phone rang. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I started staying awake at night, watching every sound, every shadow. My own apartment became a cage. The walls I once felt safe behind now felt like they were closing in. One day, I confronted Mr. Jenkins. My voice shook as I asked why he had made that call. He didn't look at me. He mumbled something about being worried and nervous. Nervous, that word, it hit me like a punch. His fear had nearly destroyed my life. His assumptions had turned my home into a crime scene. Anger burned in me, but so did sadness. I realized it wasn't just about me. It could happen to anyone. A single call, a single assumption, could ruin lives. And because of the color of my skin, people believed the worst before even knowing me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, my hands clutching my knees. I thought about all the small moments I had taken for granted. Quiet dinners, laughing with friends, walking outside without fear. It was gone, replaced by a constant, unshakable tension. And then I made a choice. I couldn't live like this forever. I had to speak. I had to make the world see the truth. Not just my truth, but the truth of anyone who had been judged, accused, or feared for reasons they didn't deserve. But I didn't know how yet. And the next day, everything would change again. The next day, I woke up to another knock at the door. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze. Every nerve in my body screamed to stay quiet. But I had to know. I had to face it. When I opened the door, it was Mr. Jenkins. He looked pale. His hands were shaking. I could see he wanted to say something but didn't know how. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he stammered. "I thought someone was in trouble." I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw the anger at him, but my voice failed me. Instead, I just stared. I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just a mistake. It was fear. Fear had made him lie. Fear had almost destroyed my life. I felt the world shift around me. All the police calls, all the whispers, all the suspicion from neighbors. It wasn't random. It had been set in motion by someone's assumptions, someone's fear of me, of my life, of what I represented. I wanted to shake him, to make him understand the pain he caused, but I also saw something else in his eyes, real guilt, but guilt that didn't erase the damage. After he left, I sat on the floor of my apartment, my hands on my face. I thought about how fragile life was, how quickly your world could fall apart over a lie, over a fear, over someone else's imagination. I thought about my neighbors, my friends, my own sense of safety, how it had all disappeared overnight, how people could see danger where there was none, and how hard it would be to trust again. But then, through the fear and anger, a strange strength began to grow inside me. I realized I couldn't let this stop me. I couldn't let one night, one phone call, one person's assumptions define my life. I stood up. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was strong. I would tell my story. I would make people see what had happened, not just for me, but for anyone who had ever been judged unfairly, accused unfairly, or treated like a threat because of who they are. Because this wasn't just a night of fear. It was a lesson, a harsh, painful lesson about the world we live in, about people's assumptions, about the danger of believing the wrong story. And I knew, deep down, that the hardest part wasn't over yet. After that night, everything had changed. My apartment looked the same. The street looked the same. But I didn't feel the same. Every shadow, every sound, every glance reminded me of what had happened. I tried to go back to normal. I cooked, cleaned, and went to work. I smiled at neighbors, but it felt forced. Their whispers were still there. Their looks still followed me. I realized something painful. Some people would always see me as a threat. No matter what I said or did. I thought about Mr. Jenkins, about the call he made. He didn't mean to hurt me, but his fear almost ruined my life. It taught me how fragile safety really is. How quickly your world can be judged by someone else's imagination. I started speaking about it, to friends, to strangers, to anyone who would listen. I wanted my story to matter, not because I needed pity, but because silence protects the wrong people, because fear unchecked becomes injustice. This wasn't just about me, it was about every person who has been assumed guilty before, proven innocent, every family that has felt suspicion in their own home, every life touched by fear and bias. And I realized something else. My anger, my fear, my pain, they could become power. Power to speak, to warn, to make a difference. I couldn't erase what happened, but I could make it matter. Sometimes, injustice doesn't have a badge. Sometimes, it comes in a whisper, a phone call, a neighbor's assumption, and it can destroy everything you hold dear in one moment. I still feel fear sometimes. I still flinch at sudden knocks. But I also feel strength. I know my story is not just mine. It belongs to anyone who has been judged unfairly. Anyone who has been seen as dangerous without reason. So I ask you this. How many more lives will be changed by fear and assumptions before the world finally sees the truth? Because one night can end, but the echo of it can last a lifetime.